All good. And we're streaming and all that good stuff. Okay, fantastic. Good evening. Let's call to order the Cities Association Board meeting of January 30th, 2025 at 7:14 p.m. Welcome to 2025 and welcome to Sunnyvale City Hall. For those of you that haven't been here before, let's go ahead and do roll call.
Ann Bybee. Present. Kitty Moore. Here. Greg Bozzo.
Here.
Lisa Fleiger. Here. Saltos Hills. Matthew Budez.
Here.
Carmen Montano. Here. David Elahi.
Present.
Mark Turner.
Here.
Ellen alternate. Okay, thank you. Ed Lowen.
Here.
Rosemary Kamei. Here. Kelly Cox. Here. Tina Walia. Here. Larry Klein.
Here.
We have a forum.
Thank you very much. Next up is oral communications. Members of the public can now speak on non-agendized items. Are there anyone in the room who wishes to speak? I'll open up public comment. Anyone remote? Go ahead. We'll go ahead and close oral communications. Move to general business. First up is the consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes of the November 14th board meeting, the exec and the 2025 meeting calendar for the executive committee minutes and executive committee, board of directors, and legislative action committee and city selection committee. Are there any questions on the agenda? Consent agenda? None. Move to approve. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak on the consent agenda in the room? No. Anyone remote?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Turner, second by May. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Up one abstention. And we have one absence. Motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item is the president update. So welcome. So I was president 5 years ago. And we had all these plans of what we were going to do for the year, of course. And then, of course, COVID happened. And we pivoted completely from and we'll be talking about what our priorities are for the year, what we want to work on. But 5 years ago, it was an interesting time to say the least, but this organization really stepped up in a lot of ways, working with the county to improve our voice, making sure that all cities, not just San Jose, not to point to San Jose, but all of our cities are heard when the county health is talking about what the steps are. At that point, our city manager was president of the City Managers Association. I was president of this organization, and our chief was head of the chiefs organization in Santa Clara County. So it was actually a good timing from that standpoint. From that, I think the county, after COVID or through COVID, has realized, I think in many ways, that the voice of all of our cities is really important and partnered a lot closely with each of our cities. And so as we're looking forward to this year, hopefully we don't have anything of that nature. We have other challenges ahead, but for me, it was a great opportunity then. It was great that what I was able to do with this organization, but we planned all these things and then COVID happened. And so I thank you all for the opportunity to do this again, and hopefully have a more normal year. That being said, there's always challenges, and we figure out what those challenges are now. Pre-COVID, Sunnyvale City Hall for many years was the location for the Cities Association meeting. It is somewhat centrally located for South County and North County cities to come here. So hopefully this commute isn't too bad for the next year, and hopefully that you enjoy our new city hall. But with that, for me, it's been, it's an honor to serve again as president. This is the 35th year of this organization. Our 30th year, we didn't have much of a celebration, and so we'll be looking at to celebrate that, especially during our summer event and our holiday party at the end of the year. But it's been, I'm following previous president Nisa Flygore's very big shoes to fill in, because for many years we were trying to get that conversion to a JPA, and she was finally able to accomplish that during her presidency.
Team effort.
It was a team effort, but you drove it to a large degree.
You were exactly.
Your background definitely helped a lot to move that across the goal line. So thank you. This organization being a JPA means that we actually have more ability to do a few things from a funding standpoint, from a few other things from a tax standpoint that wasn't there, insurance and a few other things that was cleared up with that whole conversion. So I just want to thank Nisa for her hard work, and yes, it was all of us, but that transition means a lot for this organization. So I just want to start out from that standpoint. We have a good year ahead, and I look forward to working with all of you. You have my contact information. If there's any issues, definitely feel free to reach out. It's already been a busy week, just with the city selection committee, but definitely Shali and myself and Tina, as my first vice president, are available if you have any questions, any issues, any ideas. This is tonight's meeting is setting a portion of our year from our priorities. That being said, if things come up, definitely reach out and we can add them to the agenda in future months. With that, any comments from anyone on the board? Any public comment? Sure.
Hi, for those of you I don't know, my name is Steve Preminger, and I am from the county. I'm not an official representative. I'm not elected to do anything. I never have been, never will be. I wanted to comment on Larry's remarks about how we operated during COVID, and just know that we're going to be experiencing probably some very rough times in terms of our relationship with the federal government. And I think the ability to come together on a regular basis, both the county, the cities, and perhaps some of our other partners, is something we may want to consider. I don't know if it's a priority area or just an ability to have that kind of infrastructure. And it's not my place to offer that. I'm not the county executive, but I know that did work well, I think, for most of us way back when. Thank you.
Steve, and thank you for that offer. Definitely that partnership does make a difference in the challenges we face this year, that the county will be forefront for a lot of these issues. So thank you. Any remote public wishing to speak on this item? Okay. I'll close public comment. We'll move on to the next item, determining priority areas to guide 2025 Cities Association work and activities. So other than it is 2025 and 2024. But from a Cities Association standpoint, and so this kind of continues on with the goals for this year. I'm coming in with kind of two major goals and talking to the executive board. And for me, some of the things that I brought up last year, my big thing is better together. So one of the things we did a few years ago was try to improve council governance for our councils, what our city managers expect, what our city staff expect, and that communication. So a few years ago we had Kevin Dugan speak. My goal this year is to kind of focus again on governance, because it's just kind of a refresher. A lot of our councils have new council members. A lot of us are in new roles. And so the more people we can talk, have in the room talking about what the standards are between our different cities. As mayor for Sunnyvale, being mayor for 6 years, I've had lots of mayors reach out to me on what your standards are. And so having those discussions at this organization, sharing best practices, trying to do better governance of expectations, I think is in everyone's best interest, whether or not we're talking about working within our councils or working between councils, and especially how councils relate to the city managers and city staff is a critical thing. So to me, that's one of the main goals. And then the other thing that has become, of course, I think critical since beginning of January is disaster preparedness. What we've seen in Southern California is a critical, critically, we need to have bigger discussions about emergency preparedness, not specifically for fire. Fire is important, but whether or not that's, flooding, the tsunami warning, a few months ago was a wake up call for some of our cities that were near the bay or next to the bay, but not thinking about that actually being, the flooding that might result from that. We're in the middle of the bay, not along the coast, but we were part of that from a tsunami warning. At least Sunnyvale was, and a few other cities. But then, of course, the big thing, of course, is earthquakes. So disaster preparedness and kind of focusing on a bigger discussion here, I think, is important. But those are my two, let's say, pet ideas. But definitely, I've heard about immigration and what we're doing from a county standpoint in preparation for, what's happening at the federal level, making sure that our residents feel safe. And then, of course, the funding, which we, this week has been a tumultuous week on whether or not we have funding, our nonprofits have funding, all that. Those are a few of the topics, that I'd love to talk about, but I would like to hear what your topics are, so thank you, Shali, for talking about the priorities. Having 4 to 6 priorities is what we normally do, and then bring in speakers. So conceivably have subcommittees to talk about what they would like to do, whether or not they research ideas and bring them back on best practices, whether or not they bring in specific speakers for different topics. This is why we're here. This is why I love this organization, is because we get to talk about whatever we want at the end of the day. So we can talk, we can duplicate efforts from a transportation, housing, water standpoint, but this is our opportunity to have a sharing of the minds on what the latest issues are that your cities face, as well as ultimately conceivably kick off new efforts, whether or not that was Silicon Valley clean energy, minimum wage. There were big efforts kicked off from this organization throughout the years. And so if there's things that you see in the past that you want to undertake, again, because all these issues, mental health, look at these, all these are issues that are still pertinent to our cities in many ways. And it's the interest of this group on what you would like to see throughout the year. So I've been on my soapbox for a while now. Are there any comments from any of the directors? Yes.
I would say that, and I don't have any yet as far as ideas for priorities, but I would suggest that we keep it to a list like this, either 3 to 5, in order to make sure that we can accomplish what it is we set out to do. So let's not get too overly ambitious.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes.
I like continuing from what we've done before, but in the area of public safety, I would suggest that we go with your idea about wildfire and emergency preparedness, to narrow that a little bit for this year. And then I also like the idea about governance and sharing ideas. And so I don't know if it fits there, but I would love a mini discussion in this group about the mayor's role in setting an agenda, mayor and council members' role, and how that works in different cities. because in our case, we're only there for 1 year. And it's the right balance in getting that right. It's really important to get anything done here. So I think it fits within that one, so I would do that. And then I would also say that older adult services are very important. I don't think we made a lot of progress on that last year. So I would advocate for keeping that one in focus. And maybe we could narrow it down, but still have that as a topic.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Other comments?
So
Go ahead.
I'd like for us to share what we have done for those areas, what we done in public safety. I know we did the mental health with okay, is that the one? Sustainability and resilience. I don't know what we do with that. Housing and homeless, I don't know what we did. Older adults really didn't do much. So
And Lisa, do you want
So
to
your
talk?
board members of public safety, we focused on retail theft. We took a very active role. We had the current sheriff kick us off last year, where he came and talked about the different funding programs available to our cities to help with combating retail theft and also home burglaries. And so that was very helpful because I know some cities took advantage of that. With mental health, we all know what we did there with sustainability and resiliency. In addition to having SBCE talk to us about different ways we can electrify our homes and decarb efforts. That was also at the LAC level where I think they advocated for a lot of bills related to climate change. So those are the things we accomplished that I can remember under that bullet. And then housing and homelessness, we actually were busy with this throughout the year. We had the housing bond that Larry and I were the subcommittee along with Margaret that we worked in the community when it looked like we're going to move forward with the housing bond, the regional housing bond. And so we had multiple speakers from ABAG, the county, talk with us about Measure A, what we've achieved through Measure A. You remember that one. And then to your point, I do think we focused more on housing and not homelessness. So the focus last year was housing, and we did a couple things there. And older adults, we did at least two things. One, we brought in Tyler Taylor, who works with, I can't remember the name of his organization, about things he's doing in the county, working with community colleges to have classes, some free classes for our seniors and what's available. And I know Nat Hudis can talk to that as well. But as part of the mental health initiative, we also focused on seniors. And the panel we had a specific speaker talking about the mental health services for seniors. So when I look at this list, the only sub item, I would say we really didn't do anything on was homeless.
yeah, with housing and homelessness, a lot of our older adults are experiencing that now. And I really feel that we need to keep that. But with the seniors, there are a lot of them are becoming homeless, can't afford it. So.
Recommend.
So I really appreciate the disaster preparedness idea that you have there. And when I'm thinking about residents wanting to leave our area, we have a lot of people who own electric vehicles. I have some concern about what's going to happen in a major disaster if you have many people trying to leave in an EV and then you're going to need a charge after you left. We're not really thinking about that down the road. The other issue is that they're seeing in Southern California is that with electric vehicles and all these other battery items that people have that burned are the toxic waste is now all over the place. And you have individuals really wanting to get their places cleaned up, but it isn't safe. And so I'd like to hear about how that is being handled. I'm also curious, like Moss Adams had that huge battery storage plant fire, and they found some toxic materials outside of that area. So I'd like to know how they're informing the public and cleaning that up. The housing and homelessness, I'd like to hear about how the rental assistance is going, and how we're supporting newly unhoused individuals, and then versus the long-term unhoused and who tend to have mental health issues that are happening there. what we're doing about the fentanyl and methamphetamine crisis on the streets. And also what the cities are doing with regards to the RVs and RV ordinances, because some cities are enforcing their RV ordinances. And that may impact the neighbors who perhaps didn't put any ordinance in place. And how, and what good news do we have regarding the safe parking lot areas? So are those working, and is that something that we want to share with other cities?
Thank you. Others?
All of the different topics are very relevant. I want to focus on the public safety aspect. In West San Jose, we've had numerous burglaries, and most recently, we came together with other law enforcement and different communities in Campbell, Saratoga, Cupertino. I mean, it came all the way up to Mountain View, where we collaborated together and worked very, very well to demonstrate patterns. And we caught 3 of the burglars, right? And so, in terms of communities feeling safe, we talked about retail theft last year.
Yeah.
And that has been subsiding because we're doing more cameras, we're doing more coordination with businesses. And when it moved over into people's homes, it got personal. And I know that had it not been for the coordination of all of law enforcement, we would not have been as successful to be able to do this. And it may be bigger than that, right? Because they're saying that they're seeing patterns in other communities that had not done as much reporting. And so I think, public safety is a big is on a lot of people's mind in terms of crime and theft. I also think from a safety point of view, emergency preparedness is something that's on our minds. And then in terms of safety, immigration is going to cause a lot of communities to feel unsafe. And the uncertainty in all of the schools is sort of permeating into the different communities. So to me, those are kind of top of mind. The others are also important. When I think of older adults, if you look at the demographics of Santa Clara County, all of our communities are aging. And I think that sometimes we may think, oh, well, that's next year or the next year or the next year. But as our community age, we who come from schools really have seen that the birth rates have dramatically declined. All of these schools that are closing there's a reason the families can't afford to live here. And so there's something that I think eventually we're going to need to do to address how do we provide these services necessary for older.
President Klein, Mayor Klein, thank you so much. I am thrilled that you're leading this organization this year. I learned so much from past president Lisa Flyger. It was a pleasure working with you. And as we talked in the executive committee meeting 10 days ago or something like that, and as has been said by Mayor Turner just now, keeping a shorter list and being able to get into more details, I think would be my personal preference. And we achieved a lot last year. Focusing on public safety and disaster preparedness, I think is one of the things I was having that conversation with you as well, that quite likely will end up being a primary focus. And one thought is you could consider 2 items or 3 items and then take chunks in subsections of that. I'm open to ideas like that. I really support the governance that you have talked of. I was there when Kevin did give that presentation. It was wonderful. So I'm open, flexible, and I'm more than happy to support you in whatever way you need. One quick thing we talked of earlier, we do want to do, that's a small thing, not focus for this group, but a couple of people need to work on getting our website updated so that all the fabulous work we do here gets documented.
That's a good point. Not a not a board priority, but it is definitely an organizational priority, much like the JPA it wasn't a priority last year. That being said, we spent a lot of time, so, yes.
Thank you.
Other comments? Yes.
To that point, so I'm new to this organization, and so I was scouring through the website. It could be that you set up a subcommittee with someone who's more seasoned, with some of the newer people, and let you know what you're looking for when we're on the website. Because I understand some things need to be updated, but there's also other materials that we're trying to find.
I appreciate that. And I'll take note of that. I know one of my council members is very much into website design and all of that, and found some high school students that want to help out. And so we'll see where that goes, but definitely from last year's efforts, we just wasn't able to do it before the end of the year. So, but estimating, and so we'll do a call at a future meeting or who wants to be on that subcommittee to help out helping define or what's missing. So thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think last year was a good year, and this year we got additional problems, obviously. The community is getting older, and it's probably going to get older faster as you have the immigration crackdown, and a lot of young people are, forced to leave. So that's probably a serious consideration, and who's going to help them. One thing we may want to also focus on is the budget issue. I don't know how much money we get from the feds, how that's going to affect what's available to the counties. Somewhere along the line, we should have a better handle on that as to what we should not expect to get and what we need to reserve on that. The public safety is a good topic, but I mean, it's an excellent topic. It was mostly for security issues, but right now the public safety has shifted a little bit, and I would think it would be a priority item to expressly say fire safety is a great issue that we need to work on, especially for our cities up there in the side as well. So, where you got trees and you have no exit anywhere and everybody's going to get stopped somewhere. So I would like to have that as a separate priority item if possible. So that we can really focus on it and see what needs to be done to take care of that. I think those are, I'll probably just limit my comments to those two items. Oh, virtually wise, Montesino has done one great thing. We've got those cameras that take license plate photographs. We're going to be covering our entire city. We're installing about 20 cameras that takes pictures of every car that moves out there. Just the licenses, so don't worry about anything else. And when the robbers come and rob us, Montesino, they're going to be going back to Sunny Meadow or Saturday. So please make sure you catch them.
I think most of our cities at any point have added license plate readers, but
Yeah.
that is a discussion at some point.
Yeah, so I think that would be very helpful to those. Thank you.
Thanks, President Klein. So I'm looking at the list and I want to echo what we heard from Mayor Turner and Vice President Walia. These are all great ideas, but we do want to keep it to 3 to 5 this year. And so when we get to the vote, I think it's going to be challenging for a lot of us because these are great priorities. I support the president's suggestion about revisiting the council governance topic, or back in 2022, I think we called it board member development, but it was very helpful, very effective, much appreciated, especially from newer council members and even more seasoned council members. So I support that as being a priority and something we should work on together this year. With regards to disaster preparedness, emergency preparedness, however, whatever we call it, I think it's top of mind for our residents. I'm sure at your council meeting, similar to our council meeting, 2 weeks ago, we had residents either emailing or showing up asking, what's your disaster preparedness plan? What are you doing as a city to protect us if there's a fire? And so I think this is something that's definitely countywide and something we should address here at Cities Association. We can share ideas, come up with plans, and I know Vice President Walia has some ideas as well that she shared at the executive committee meeting. So I definitely think that should be, and of course, again, we only have 3 to 5, and I've already mentioned 2 really strong ones. Public safety, public safety will always be a priority, and with the format of going back to committees, if that's what the president wants to do this year, I'd be interested in the subcategory of public safety. right? Because it's such a broad category to determine whether or not it's something we want to have as a priority this year. And just to quickly, explain what the committee format is. Over the years, the Cities Association has gone back and forth on whether or not to have subcommittees work on the different priority areas. So we would pick a broad category, and then the subcommittee consisting of under quorum would figure out, okay, you have public safety, what exactly under public safety should we work on as a city? So I'd be curious to hear, what under public safety, because we dealt with retail theft and home workers last year. And then older adults, I mean, that touches so many things, mental health, homelessness. So we could either have older adults as a standalone as we did last year, or depending on the subcategory, maybe we can address or seniors as one of those subcategories. And with homelessness, so with housing, and I forgot to mention, one of the great things we did as a Cities Association years ago was to form this planning collaborative, and I think they're presenting later on our agenda. And they focus on housing issues, and so last year they presented and they work on things like giving us, ideas, and Shawty can talk about this on ADUs and working with our planning staff. And so we obviously have a fund for this, but housing and homelessness to me will be ongoing priorities for our cities. We have the RENA number hanging over us, and for other reasons, we need to and should be building more housing and addressing the homelessness issue. So that to me should also be a priority, and I don't know what we'd specifically tackle under housing and homelessness. I will throw one more in, which is childcare. I know this has been a priority for President Ellenberg in the county. I talked with her briefly about different things we can do as cities and counties together to work on childcare. She's launched a grant program, and what she's interested in working with the Cities Association on is to figure out what childcare facilities and programs we currently have, and is there a way to collaborate and improve them. And this ties into, immigration or workforce, housing, homelessness. I mean, we know childcare is important to all our communities. And so this to me, again, there are only 3 to 5, so I'm not sure it will make the cut, but I thought it was worth mentioning. With regards to the budget, immigration, I don't know if, these are things we should be ready and willing to react to. When, Steve Preminger from the county mentioned that, there may come an opportunity this year based on what we're seeing that we need to work again closely with the county. And I see budget, immigration as 2 of the many issues we may need to collaborate with the county on. So I don't know if we necessarily need to make them a priority, but just to keep in the back of our minds that these may be things we need to work with the county. Okay.
Thank you. Director Bybee, I think you have.
Thank you. I think all of the suggestions are great. I think we should focus on public safety, as a broad topic, and under that falls, emergency preparedness. I know when I was on, city staff, we used to have, I know most cities have their own disaster plan. We used to have a coordinated effort with the county, an annual or biannual drill, where a lot of cities got involved and did disaster planning. So to me, that seems like it would be an achievable thing to do countywide and coordinate among all the cities. The other thing that I think that all cities are vulnerable to is incidents like what happened in New Orleans and some of these mass shootings that are happening. I know in Campbell we have 2 or 3 festivals each year, and I can just, imagine that, an incident like New Orleans happening just to one of our cities where we have these festivals. Sunnyvale has festivals, Mountain View. So that's something that I think should be looked at as far as what each city is doing and are we prepared for that. And a lot of it, the root cause of some of that is obviously mental health. So I think that should be at the forefront of some of our discussions, because obviously some of these incidents that happen are people that don't really understand or don't have a clue about what they're doing. It's driven with their mental health issues. And then I do agree with the coordination between the public safety jurisdictions. I know Campbell was recently involved with San Jose in the arrest of those individuals. So I think that's important to do collaboration with cities. I think that's it.
Other comments? Yes.
I'm new here, Kelly, everyone, so thanks. Maybe it's a clarifying question that will flush itself out as we discuss this more broadly, but all of these, seem to have tangibles, deliverables that we would be able to agree upon in terms of what we want to see with public housing, what we want to see with safety. But what I'm curious about is governance and ethics. I think that's that gray matter that gets really sticky, and I'm wondering in terms of deliverables, when we bring that back to a group of people, and you mentioned maybe the interworkings of the council and the city manager position. It's interesting to me in this position to understand what the reach of a committee like this would be in implementing change in those facets. It's certainly something, when I hear board member development, that makes sense to me because we're talking about an intrinsic and an individual drive and taking responsibility for ourselves. If we talk about governance and ethics in terms of how do we go model and make change, I'm from Santa Clara. I know everybody has their stories, but you know, as I meet people, they're like, maybe we're but you know, when we talk about governance and ethics, there's almost a resistance to that right now. That you know, we've got a mentality of like, I don't know how if you brought that back or if I did as a representative, that would be embraced and held. And so I wonder, and maybe that's something you guys have seen successfully, and just open up that conversation. If that was to be a priority we move forward with, what are the deliverables and how do you see that through?
So I'll answer that so what we had when Kevin Dugan spoke 3 years ago, we ended up having about 45 council members from across the county in the room talking about expectations, so it was kind of a general discussion. My vision, at least for this year, for that one specifically, is we have a May-June event, having a similar sort of presentation, but then also, let's say a panel of city managers getting certain questions, a panel of mayors that have had some tenure within the county, talking about their councils, goods and bads. And then hearing that, kind of doing to a certain degree, a reset or just a general discussion, because I do think that there's value, much like many of our cities do executive retreats of the council members. I spent the whole day up until late this afternoon at our retreat today. But it's sharing some of those ideas, and I've heard from different mayors on how you set agendas. How do you so there's a lot of kind of the nuts and bolts, just having those discussions. But to me, at least, keeping this as a priority, mainly to see, for one thing, having that, like, say, May-June event where we have as many council members in a more relaxed scenario and kind of just talking about good governance, I think is important. So that's the main reason there. And then conceivably having a few topics that throughout the year on directly elected mayor versus selected. There's a few things on the differences between our different cities and hearing the pluses and minuses of each system and having other discussions, but kind of leaving it there. Other comments?
If I may very quickly to piggyback on what you said, I really want to support that for somebody who is new to this group. That summer event, typically we get about 75 to 80 people who attend. Just bringing people in the room and listening to each other and seeing the dynamics, the relationships, the partnerships we form, not just within our own council, but beyond. I think that will have a tangible benefit. Just want to really support that.
Thank you.
Yeah, largely, I think a lot of the goals that everyone has said and priorities are actually really good, but I'm wrapping my head around this past week, essentially, where it's a lot of scrambling. We're not quite entirely sure. So I feel like that's almost like a bucket in itself, which kind of dealt with, like, what are we doing about immigration? What are we doing if federal fundings get cut off from us? Things like that. That feels like a big bucket, and that bucket's like getting a little bigger because we just don't know. And so that's hard. I almost feel like let's put that as a bucket itself. And you could throw other stuff in it. On a more optimistic level, the council member from, or I guess you're vice mayor now, right? I am. Oh, wow, just into the frying pan. I was thinking about how sometimes, most of the time, like, cities can be little policy labs. So like, if one city hasn't done something before, another city might have done it, and so that could help. And so allowing that sharing, even though some cities may be very different from each other, like, I mean, we would always argue that our city is a very unique butterfly, and I would argue that my city is the best city, but but it helps to see what another city has done, and like, if things did just go drastically wrong, then it might be something worth a shot, kind of thing. But overall, those are my two major factors: sharing, policy sharing, doesn't matter actually which level of priority, which bucket of priorities, and also just dealing with whatever's coming out of the federal government at this point.
So I want to piggyback on Emily's and Lois's comments. I feel that we need to start sharing more, because that's what this whole organization is supposed to be about, us collaborating, sharing. And I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really seen that. I'd like to see us sharing so that when I can get ideas, oh, what's your city doing? Oh, yeah, I like that idea. You know, so I would like to see more of that. And because I think we can learn from each other. So those are my wants for this organization. So I can take that information back to my city, and then if it's working in your city, I want it to be working in my city. And that's what I feel this team should be all about.
I appreciate that, and that's what I look at good governance and having this organization share those ideas. So totally agree. Any other comments? We'll open up for public comment. No one in the room wants to say anything?
Well,
Absolutely.
I think that disaster preparedness makes a lot of sense. I think the county has resources, but each of your cities has resources too. And I think to the degree that we're less siloed and start working together, I think it would be a big benefit to all our residents, because we share all our residents, and there's programs like CERT programs that some cities do well, others don't do as well. And, you know, again, to the theme of learning from each other, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. No one else in the room wishing to speak? Anyone remote? No. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. I know it'll be difficult, but I'd like to at least narrow it down to, we'll say 5. And for those that don't make the cut, that does not mean that we can't bring in speakers. You know, I've already been talking to a few that some overlap with this, some overlap with things, depending upon which 5 we choose. Ultimately, it's figuring out how we move forward with that, you know, throughout the year. And so the executive committee will discuss this further. The concept of creating subcommittees has worked some years, hasn't worked other years, depending upon how big the topic is. We'll next month, when we, or only 2 weeks from now, when we come back, we'll be talking about that further. But does anyone want to take a shot at?
President, no, Shawty, could you go over the list again? I want to make
Oh,
sure.
thank you.
Is there a way we can list them
Yeah, I can get them.
and then tally mark them as we?
Oh.
Is that possible?
Yeah. I think-
I don't
Thank you.
dots if you want to-
No, let's not do that. I think we can make we can, you know, make a good
Yeah.
estimate at the top 5, and then anything that falls below, then we can, I still, from a board standpoint, want to try to cover as much as possible.
Yeah.
Focus on these 5, but having a speaker or two, you know, from an immigration standpoint, I've already been talking to, you know, DA Rose and his staff about whether or not they can come in and talk. So there's lots of overlap. Federal response, things are changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd be maybe a standing item. And
Yeah.
when we talk about challenges later, that is a challenge, from that standpoint. Sorry, Charlie, can you enter what we've listed?
Yeah. So some of them are categories by themselves, and some of them have been nested.
Yeah.
So disaster preparedness, is that a category by itself?
Public safety and disaster preparedness. And the good thing about kind of keeping them a little wider is we can focus, if, you know, it's like there's certain kind of subcategories or things that we're talking about here, depending on what speakers that we can get or what experts we can talk about, you know, it's like public safety and disaster, emergency disaster preparedness. That's important. I think all of us, especially seeing what in LA had was a big issue. Mental health. Older adults. Council governance. Homelessness and housing. Childcare. I'll say federal response, and we'll just leave it at that. Is maybe it's not it's the unknown for on a monthly basis to talk about. Because under federal response, it's budget, it's immigration, it's a little bit of everything. I think that's it. Try to capture at least how I saw it. Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll just go around the room and just, we'll all pick on five, right? Valley Markham and then.
Or we can do it after if you want to. We need to take. Actually, how many do we have? We have 7. Okay. 7. Oh, yeah. I'm wondering if we should just do the bullet after. Actually, probably, so we won't make the motion here tonight.
Oh, God, okay.
I think that's the fastest way. As opposed to trying to hear, 13 cities talk about 14 cities.
Oh, I wouldn't talk about them. I'd just go mental health, older adults, boom, boom, boom. That's my
Yeah.
5.
We'll just do stickers after.
Oh,
We'll just
okay,
do
all right,
stickers
all
after.
right, okay.
We should be able to wrap up on.
Sure, okay.
Yeah. And it'll only be a few minutes after. So we'll do that after, shall we? Perfect. Okay. So you'll see what the final results are after this next month, but we've already started on several of these when we get to that point. With that, we'll move on to item number 4. Cities Association orientation. Alex?
Thank you. I thought this might be helpful because we have a few new people on our board. All right. Okay, board member orientation. So welcome to the board. We are a collective getting together to collaborate among member cities on issues of mutual interest. All 15 cities in Santa Clara County are members, and we are a joint powers agency. I'll get more into that. I thought it'd be good to mention a few successes to date because we have had some very concrete successes. So Silicon Valley Clean Energy was created through here. The single-use plastic ban ordinances that came through here. The Healthy Cities Dashboard came from a collaboration between the Department of Public Health and this organization. The Planning Collaborative has provided really great technical support to all of our cities, developing their housing elements and then doing the HCD response letters. But I'm not going to go into that because our guest speaker is from the Planning Collaborative. And then I just thought I'd mention that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Cities Association was awarded the President's Medal for Exemplary Service by the Board of Supervisors. Just some general information. We're a 1 city, 1 vote model. We are governed by the Board of Directors. We have an executive committee, a legislative action committee, a city selection committee, and I'll go into more details on those. All of the above are Brown Act bodies. So if you want to attend virtually, you would have to use the traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules, or you'd have to use AB 2449. And please tell me if you're going to do that, because we need to, it's hard to establish quorum sometimes. The board presidents, city serves as the host city for the calendar year, so we've got Tim. The meetings are held monthly and as needed. And then again, to assure quorum, just let me know if you or your alternate cannot attend. And what does it mean that we're a joint powers agency? We have insurance. We have greater protection from liability for member agencies, since the JPA is a separate legal entity. It clarifies our legal status. It makes it easier for us to apply for regional and statewide grants. The JPA is not authorized to hire employees, acquire property, or impose taxes. Thought that was very important to note. All professional services are provided by independent contractors, and right now that's just me and Jenny Quinn, our co-legal counsel, and Andrew Shen. The JPA may not become a member of CalPERS, and the JPA will continue to administer the City Selection Committee, which you saw earlier. The City Selection Committee is formed by state statute, and so we provide the administrative support. So Form 700, compliance and anti-harassment. So all board members and alternates are required to fill out Form 700 for your participation on the board. I will enter your information into the county system. The county is graciously letting us use their system. But you can fill out your Form 700 electronically, as some of you who were on the board last year know how painful that was. And your jurisdiction will be the entire county, not just your individual city, when you fill it out. The board adopted an anti-harassment policy in October 2024, and I will be emailing that to all board members and alternates. So a deeper dive, the board of directors, each city has one representative and one alternate. It is the governing body of the city's association, so it establishes our priority areas, as you saw. It approves budgets, programs, projects, and contracts. The city manager from the board president's jurisdiction is the liaison between the City Managers Association and the Cities Association. And I do attend the city managers meetings and just report on what the city's association is doing. We're very happy with our close connection with our city managers. That provides staff support. We have 9 board meetings per calendar year, and we meet on the second Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock p.m.
Usually.
Usually. What is the executive committee? The executive committee members are elected by the board of directors. So our president is Larry Klein, our first vice president, Tina Walia, second vice president and LAC chair is J.R. Fruin. The secretary/treasurer is Elliot Scazola, and our immediate past president is Nisa Flecker. What does the executive committee do? They approve the agendas for the board, LAC, and city's selection committee meetings. But just to be clear, the executive committee does not have the authority to approve new programs or projects, but they do make recommendations to the board, and the board will ultimately vote on that. The Legislative Action Committee, so you've probably heard tell about that. It is made up of 1 representative and 1 alternate chosen by each member jurisdiction. It is chaired by the second vice president. It is the convening body for members to discuss and take positions on legislative bills, local and state measures. So as you heard, one of our priority areas, we were able to do the work on it, the housing priority area, through our Legislative Action Committee. If you go to our website, the bills that we wrote letters for, that page is up to date. We have guest speakers, just like in this committee, presentations. And the LAC, so how does LAC work? So the LAC committee takes a position, and the LAC chair communicates that position to the board. Included in that discussion are also the minority opinions as well. So it's more balanced. And the board will make the final decision on the city's association position on any bill or measure. So the LAC makes the recommendation and the board makes the final decision. City Selection Committee, I know quite a few of you are just participating in it, so I won't go into it with too much detail. I know that I nagged a bunch of you by telling you that the mayors are the members of this committee, or their appointees. And it's chaired by, well, you guys can read all of this. The clerk of the board, so we have a connection to the county. So the clerk of the board by state statute serves as the secretary. And it's kind of on an as-needed basis, sometimes 2 meetings, sometimes 1. And because it's created by state statute, you do not need to be a member of the city's association to serve on the committee or apply for appointments. We have 2 main events per year, or we can schedule more if needed. Our June membership event, which you might have heard a little bit about, and our December holiday party. It's always a lot of fun. But throughout the year, we may, on an as-needed basis, put together symposia, forums, and workshops. In August 23, I believe, we had a housing symposium that we did down at the County Board of Supervisors in their main chambers. So that's an example. Staffing is myself and our co-legal counsel. And that's my contact information. And I'm very liberal with my phone number, but I didn't put it up here because this is kind of a public document. And that's it. Do you have any questions? Kind of ran through that very quickly, but hope it all makes sense. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Question, have you published a roster of the board and the committees? I may have missed it.
So I have not, so you have not missed anything. If you want, if the board wants a roster, I know that last year there was a request for cell phone numbers. So if the board is interested in doing that, then I will make it happen. But I won't do it without the board's permission.
And even just starting with the names would be helpful.
Yes, we can
So is that,
definitely get that.
so do we need to vote on that or what? Because I requested that last year. And now you're saying that we have to have a consensus of the whole board. So is this the time to ask for that?
It's the question of whether or not you want your cell phone distributed to everyone is, I think, the only question.
It's meant to be an internal document, but it could get distributed publicly by accident.
I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry. It's meant to be an internal document.
Yeah, we know that.
But it may get circulated publicly by accident.
Yeah, but we serve on the VTA board, we also the library, commission, the JPA library, joint, everybody shares their numbers, so we don't see a big deal out of this.
So we should tell them because whatever you all decide,
Can we just do it and then let people opt out?
Yeah, so
you
I,
can opt in.
I think if somebody doesn't want their number on it, then that's fine. If somebody
so we'll
wants
reach out to each of the primaries and alternates and list for all the different boards, what those numbers are. And
Thank you.
we'll just get it done. Because definitely the organization used to put out a county-wide document on collecting the names and numbers and emails for every council member in the county, as well as supervisors and our state reps as much as possible. That being said, that's interesting.
I think it'll stop.
Stop in a minute. Don't stare at the screen.
It's so you're trying.
Yeah.
Can you try turning the video on and then off?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do this before.
if I can.
You all know we're on the keyboard. On the keyboard.
Oh, on the keyboard.
Yeah, so we used to actually publish a document which some past council members who were no longer part of this organization really liked to see. So they could always know, they could always contact the council members of their city and surrounding cities and all that. But I think just having a document of at least the primaries and alternates is what we're really here for. So I think that makes sense. As opposed to, it was a big effort to create this document every year. And it was not worthwhile from a certain standpoint.
And there were some people who didn't want their information public.
Correct. So it was
The whole thing.
depending, so dealing with every clerk, and it was a difficult. A lot of work for very little value. Other comments? Sorry.
Oh, no.
It's yours.
Any other questions? Okay, well, this was a discussion item. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Fine.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just like, we need to get this meeting rolling
Yep.
because it's already.
I know, we got sometime. Yes,
Haven't taken public
I know.
comment. My quick comment just is that I appreciate the presentation. A snapshot, because I'm looking around, there are 4 or 5 new members to this, and so it may help if you could send that via email in case you did this afternoon. I have not received anything.
I
So just an
didn't think,
FYI.
I didn't think anyone would want it.
I
No, I'll
think
email
it-
it.
That's worthwhile.
Just a comment, that's it.
Yeah, I'll email it. I'll make a note. Thank you.
It's very good.
Public comment, those in the room? Any remote public comment?
Nope.
Okay. We'll move on to our next item, the planning collaborative update. Wendy, it's your item.
Oh, it's mine.
It says your item.
Okay. So the planning collaborative, you heard me talk about that very, very briefly. We're very lucky to have one of the principals at Community Planning Collaborative, David Driscoll, here, and he's gonna go give you a high-level overview of what the planning collaborative is and how it's been of value to all of our cities. And if we are running low on time, then Dave, is it okay with you if I don't read your bio and I just circulate it?
That's fine. Yeah. Shally, I'm trying to share screen. I think it needs to be enabled. But
Okay, you should be able to.
okay, here we go. Perfect. Let's get this going. Everyone able to see that? I'll get a full screen here.
Yep.
Yeah. That works. Can't hear you. Can you see?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay. One, sorry I'm not there in person tonight, but hope to come in person one of your future meetings. My colleague Sam Dolgoff, who manages the Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative and works with me daily on this, is here on the call and can help answer questions. I'm going to do a really quick presentation and overview of what the Planning Collaborative is about. I'll just point out our company's name is Community Planning Collaborative. It's very similar to Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative, but they're different things. We're the technical support for the staff across the county. We work with all 16 jurisdictions, so including the county, in the Planning Collaborative. Started actually in October of 2019. And it was spurred by folks who had been in San Mateo County working on planning staffs there, where there's been 21 elements. It's a similar group in San Mateo County. They came to Santa Clara County and were interested in starting a similar collaborative. And then shortly after that, there was money that flowed from the state, the REAP funding, the Regional Early Action Plan funding, that then ABAG distributed to support collaboratives around the 9 counties of the Bay Area. So we've been super fortunate the last several years to have money from the state flowing through ABAG to support the work of the collaborative. It's kind of similar to what you guys were just talking about in terms of the Cities Association Board as an opportunity to get together, share information, learn what each other are doing, how are you approaching this issue, but it's working with the staff. So it's folks from your planning department staff. In some cities, you have housing staff as well who are participating. And we typically meet every month, but I'll walk through some of the specific activities. There's special work groups that we have and training sessions, that things that people come to in addition to sort of our regular business meetings. So the idea is that we're going to strengthen capacity, help people do more and do better with less money. So, leverage resources. I'll give an example of cities getting together and hiring one consultant to do shared work across jurisdictions. That 6 of the cities are doing that together right now. We're not making decisions for cities. We're not advocating for any position. We're there to provide technical assistance. So identifying sort of what cities have similar or shared goals, and then what can we do to help them learn together and move the ball in your communities on priorities that each of your councils are identifying. So just quickly, I'll walk through some of the things this last year. For the 2021 through 2023, our laser focus was on helping every jurisdiction work on their housing element. And we did a number of things to provide data, provide technical support, training. We had a couple of groups actually were helping on affirmatively furthering for housing, AFFH rules, and making sure everyone was meeting the bar that the state had set. And then we also helped review HCD comment letters and give guidance on how to respond. And again, that was a great opportunity for shared learning. So some cities were getting their letters before others, so we could learn from them. How did they deal with some of the comments they'd gotten, and to be able to share that across to the other jurisdictions. We do a regular newsletter. There's a number of things, announcements about grant funding and things that we make sure everyone's aware of. We have a steering committee. We've been talking about financial planning for next year, and I'll talk about that at the very end of this presentation. And then we spent a chunk of this last year just looking at everyone's housing elements. What did people said they had committed to in their housing elements, and where might there be opportunities to collaborate? So we're now in the housing element implementation phase, and we've done one-on-one meetings with each of the jurisdiction staff teams to understand priorities and timelines and things and look for opportunities to work together on things. It's a great place where staff come and talk about things that they've done that they think other jurisdictions could learn from and would find valuable. So Campbell talked about their affordable housing overlay. San Jose talked about the work they've done on local tenant preference policies. This is for affordable housing units and making them, giving a preference for local folks to get into those units. We have a Google groups that people post questions to and look for responses when they need something really quickly before sort of outside of our regular meeting schedule. It's also a platform at the meetings where we share things going on around the region. So not just within Santa Clara County, but we had someone from Marin County come and talk about the countywide cross-jurisdiction outreach they're doing around anti-displacement. We shared some of the work that ABAG's done around objective design standards and rezoning resources. There's an ADU homeowner survey tool to collect better information from people who are building ADUs. And that's an online tool that every jurisdiction can ask homeowners come in to get a permit to give information about what they're planning to do with ADU, how much they're planning to rent it for. So the next time we have to give data to HCD, we have better information from across the region to share with them. And then transit-oriented communities is a big area of focus right now. And we've been doing one-on-one as well as group support for folks who are transit-oriented communities and applying for funding. And then a big part of what we do is trainings on specific topics or work groups on specific topics. So sort of starting in, I think it was October, we had the first session. This last year, we had Kevin Zwick, who was the executive director for the Housing Trust of Silicon Valley, do a series of trainings on affordable housing finance, like how does the money come together to make a housing project happen? If you have local funding, where should you be thinking about putting that in? What's the sequencing of things? What can you do to leverage your local dollars into attracting other resources to make housing happen? We did training on dealing with an angry public, which maybe you could all relate to. So planning staff and housing staff are often dealing with people who are upset about things and sort of just how to de-escalate and sort of be able to engage in constructive dialogue. A lot of work on ADUs. I'll give an example of AB 1332. That's the pre-approved plans law and how to meet that. And I'd say one of the things that we know staff appreciate the most is just the training that we do around new housing laws and helping to boil down, understand what does this law say? What is it you have to do at your jurisdiction? What's the timeline for compliance? And be able to share the different strategies people are taking to meet a very large number of new laws that have been coming down from Sacramento. So I'll talk about the two things on the bottom, the anti-displacement work and the missing middle work group on a later slide. I just want to show some examples. This was one of the big projects we did in 2023 and into 2024, developing the ADU Santa Clara County.org website. So it's something that each of your jurisdictions can link to. It provides a number of resources for homeowners who are looking to do an ADU project. Like what is an ADU? What are the different types of ADUs? What should you be thinking about if you're thinking about building one? It has a calculator tool so you can do some pro forma analysis and understand how much you might be able to rent it for, how much it's going to cost you, what's your payback period, and links to some financing tools. The one that we've just launched, and I think 7 or so jurisdictions are live now with pre-approved plans galleries. So this is a tool that we developed. And so your local jurisdiction staff can go in and select from some existing pre-approved plans, and it also provides a platform so that if an architect comes in and asks for your building department to pre-approve, which is basically do a building code review of their plan, there's this gallery that they can upload that plan to. So it meets the requirements of the state law in a very easy, user-friendly way. We've got 12 jurisdictions that are in process for making those live and giving more and better information on your websites to homeowners and trying to make that ADU development process easier and less expensive. And then one of the big things that we're starting up now is work on anti-displacement, which is a term that refers to we have a list of 34 policies and programs that kind of fall under the anti-displacement umbrella. Some of them are implementation of state law requirements, and some of them are things that you could do locally to go above and beyond. A lot of it's focused on how are you supporting tenants who might be facing displacement, either through eviction and sort of providing legal resources or counseling for folks, as well as people who might be displaced because there's a new affordable housing development going up on the site where they've been living, and no fault of their own, they're living in a unit that's going to get torn down. So there's state laws that require the replacement of those units. There's state laws that require some assistance for their relocation. So just giving local staff, here's the kind of things you need to adopt locally to implement these laws, and then things you could do and things you should think about in terms of business processes and staff resources that you'll need to support things. So one of the things we just put out, like I think last week, is a slide deck that staff can use to talk with people in their communities about what are we talking about when we talk about displacement? What are the things that drive displacement? What are the things we can do in response to it? So this is just an example of the kind of thing we do where they can use it or not use it. They can customize it. They could just use it as it is, but it's sort of a resource rather than starting from scratch, trying to create a presentation on what displacement is. That they have a tool that they can draw upon. And so these are the things that are coming up next. Focus on anti-displacement, which was one of the things we saw across a lot of housing elements, various parts of the anti-displacement work. We're going to be starting about missing middle housing work groups. So that's both missing middle housing is a typology of housing that's not a single family detached home and not an apartment building. So things like townhomes and duplexes, triplexes. So a type of housing, but then also strong interest in looking at how can we make those types of housing and other types of housing affordable to middle income households. So that's something that's of interest to a lot of your jurisdictions. So we're going to be doing a work group around that. We did a developer roundtable before, just hearing from folks who are building housing, like what's going on and what are the things that make them want to build housing in a particular jurisdiction or not, what gets in the way. And we're setting up a tour to go around and look at sites with what's a group called the Council of Infill Builders. So these are folks that are looking at infill housing opportunities, and we're going to be doing a tour later in the spring. So there's a lot going on. So we've been trying to manage that people aren't going to too many meetings and work groups because they got a lot of work to get done. They got full plates. One of the things we are though working on, the money we have to help make all this happen runs out at the end of this year. So we're going to do everything we can to make the most of this year and the funding that we have. And we started conversations with folks about how we can continue to support the work of the collaborative in 2026, even if it's at a lower level, but sort of be able to continue to leverage each other's work efforts and learn from each other. So we have a draft proposal with our steering committee. They'll be taking it to city leadership. Some of them will probably be coming to council. To the extent that we have council members who understand what the planning collaborative is and are advocates for continuing the work, that's great. We'll be providing some material to your staff, and they'll be talking with folks in each jurisdiction about continuing the work through having jurisdiction contributions. And that is it. I think I hopefully kept to 10 minutes or thereabouts. And happy to
Thank-
answer questions.
Thank you, David. And ultimately, this is, this is similar to what this organization is from a planning collaborative standpoint, from the funding that we got through MTC. But a lot of our planning staff have been working, trying to, for one thing, meet the housing element requirements, but looking at how to do economy of scale across our county. And that's been the positive thing of having this planning collaborative. So are there any questions? Directors?
So when it comes to like the opportunity for training and stuff like that, would that be training for this board? Or is that something local to your jurisdiction?
It's, go ahead.
I mean, the train, go ahead.
It's for city staff.
Training for city staff and planning, planning CDD, to get them figuring out what their priorities are, because each of our cities are dealing with housing elements slightly different. But there is like the ADU SEC was trying to compile what the requirements are for each of our cities, trying to also respond to the yearly update of new laws that the state is imposing on us. And so trying to make it easier for residents to say, I live in this city, what are my requirements, and, to compile it in one location. Yes.
Are you limited to Santa Clara County or are you working in other counties also?
So there are collaboratives in other counties. On the anti-displacement work, we're actually collaborating with, well, the collaboratives are collaborating with San Mateo County. So we've combined some our budgets together so we can do more. So by working together, so the budget for the anti-displacement is actually shared between Santa Clara County and San Mateo County, the 21 Elements group.
But the work that David and his consultants do, it's for Santa Clara County cities.
Yeah.
Have a whole collaborative name. And I'll just make an additional plug for the planning collaborative, the Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative, because they do a lot of work in the background with our staff, all our cities. You ever talk to your planning staff about how much they work with the planning collaborative, you'll be amazed at how much they work with them. I didn't realize until we were going through the housing element update process, how much they've been working behind the scenes with the planning collaborative, because to Carmen's point earlier, they actually, it's economies of scale, right? They basically work with all the cities, they look at ordinances, ADU development, things that we can all do as a city. And they're doing that in the background, so training for our staff, helping us reach arena numbers. The small cities benefit. We don't have the staff, and even the bigger cities benefit because we learn from other cities and they bring a lot of expertise.
Any other questions? Open to the public. Any questions, comments? Any remote?
No.
Close it. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Looking
Can-
forward.
Can we get a copy of these slides?
Can we get a copy of those slides?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll send
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks,
Great.
David.
Night.
Have a good evening. Our next item is item number 6, the City of Gilroy's pending Cities Association membership discussion and possible action.
Throw them out.
We're not a man. Let's see. So for those of you that are new here, when we converted to a JPA, definitely there were some questions and issues with the bylaws, and Gilroy at that point decided that they wanted to see how this turned out. Not that we didn't keep nudging them that we are better, as I was saying earlier, we're better together. Having all 15 cities part of this organization is good for all of us at the end of the day. And so at the Gilroy Council meeting of January 6th, their council voted unanimously to rejoin the Cities Association. So happy to see them consider that rejoining. In talking to Janie about what that requirement is, Cities Association requires, according to the existing bylaws that we have in the JPA, thank you, requires a resolution, a signed agreement, and payment of the dues for a new member to join. So what we're conceivably requesting tonight is for the 14 cities to vote to adopt a resolution with the approval of the agreement and authorizing the mayor or the city manager to sign the agreement. Of course, pay the dues. And as far as the bylaws, or sorry, as far as the JP is concerned, the board must approve that membership with a majority vote. But we can condition that vote when we make the motion on those three things: a resolution, a signed agreement, and this payment of dues. We had a resolution that we think we passed to them, but they, at this point, their city manager has been updated with that information. So that's a quick overview. Any questions about that?
Yes. Why did it take you so long?
Wasn't that long.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
immediately for you, man.
Once we had a new mayor, no.
That's what.
Well, I did get a unanimous support on my second meeting of my life.
That's good. Hey,
Well done.
that's well done.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I'd like to welcome the city of Gilroy. Thank you. So great to see you guys. Thank you. And you can get even with all of us by becoming president, then we'll all have to come to Gilroy.
Your vice chair. Maybe in a couple of years.
And President Klein, I'm ready to make the motion if there are no.
We need to go public. Yeah. First public comment? No public comment?
No.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
There is a motion. I move that the Cities Association Board of Directors approves Gilroy, the city of Gilroy rejoining the membership of the Cities Association, subject to the city of Gilroy adopting the resolution that was mentioned by the president, approving the agreement either signed by the city manager or the mayor, and payment of the dues.
I'd like to second that. I'd be honored, unless
No,
President Klein.
that's fine.
We were part of all that work the last couple of years.
Thank you, Director Raleigh, or Vice President Raleigh. With that, any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Is this a roll call vote or a?
We should have a roll call vote because we need we need to be very clear about the majority, 2/3 majority,
No, just majority.
just majority. Okay, just checking.
It's 2/3.
I can't remember.
Count somebody.
That's right. The opposite.
I'm gonna call you out by cities. Campbell. Aye. Cupertino.
Aye.
Gilbert, oh, sorry. Los Altos,
Yes.
Los Gatos,
Aye.
Milpitas,
Yes.
Monte Sereno,
All right.
Morgan Hill,
Yes.
Mountain View,
Welcome aboard, yes.
Palo Alto,
Yes.
San Jose,
Aye.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Saratoga,
Trill, yes, but.
and Sunnyvale.
Absolutely, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome back. Next, we'll move on to item number 7, Santa Clara County City Managers Association update. Tim Kirby, City Manager for Sunnyvale.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our city hall. Welcome back, Gilroy. I'll call up your city administrator, Jimmy, and collect that money. I just will give a very brief update. We met in early January's first meeting of the year. We are now led by Pamela Wu, City Manager for Cupertino. We worked through some committee appointments of our own, talked through some of our regional efforts like our Management Talent Exchange program, our leadership program, our Leadership Academy program. And we also talked about hosting a similar effort with regards to onboarding new council members with Kevin Dugan. Kevin was a city manager for Mountain View for 21 years and in Campbell for 8. Very experienced, wrote a lot about council manager, form of government relationships for ICMA. Excellent trainer. Ours would be a little bit different. It'll probably be a lot more in depth. But we'll get more on that in the future. We are meeting again on February 12th. Next week is the league's city managers conference in Rancho Mirage, where I'm sure much of the topic will be the same as everywhere else about the federal administration's current efforts or current initiatives. And but I'm looking forward to that conference. It's city managers from all over the state. Really great opportunity for networking, but also knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. That concludes my my item. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Thank you.
I'll clean up the tech issues for the next meeting.
Yes. It's always getting used to a new setup. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Tim. Do we need public comment for that? No, we don't only that. Next up.
Steve goes though.
Yeah, I know. Next up, executive director update.
I don't really have much of an update. All of your cities have been really wonderful and responsive about getting me all the information that I need so that I know who's on the board and all of our other committees. And I want to thank Gilroy, especially your city staff has been a dream to work with.
Thank you.
That's it.
Fantastic. Finally, we have joys and challenges.
I just had a suggestion. I think the orientation slide that you prepared are really good. It may be helpful to maybe have a presentation on that in the city of Gilroy and maybe some other cities, so that they understand what the city presentation does.
Okay, I would be happy to.
Any other comments? Yes.
May we also have that slide deck as well?
Yes.
From the orientation. Thank you. Very good.
Others? Seeing none, we will move on to joys and challenges. Go around or anyone have any joys and challenges that you want to speak about?
I'll start. Los Altos co-hosted a Chinese New Year celebration at our community center last week, and we had over 2,000 attendees. It was huge. I know. So we're very grateful to have that new community center.
Wow, that's fantastic. Is that your first city Lunar New Year of that?
That we co-hosted, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, today, speaking of ICMA, we were hosting 15 members of ICMA as far away as Virginia in Morgan Hill, and they were touring and talking about the Elevate Morgan Hill, which is one of the programs we do in order to reach out to our Spanish speaking population and some of the underserved. And these were cities doing similar kinds of efforts. So we were collaborating with them.
Anyone else? Yes.
Joy and challenge. I'll start with the challenge is wildfire preparation and realizing that many of our residents have had their insurance canceled and are paying the state 4 times as much for half the coverage. Well, everything that's going on is putting that right. Everything's fine. The joy is that in our first council meeting, we passed 2 measures, one to allocate 2% of our capital budget to a wildfire operating fund that our town manager could use as needed. And the second is to create a emergency coordinator position where it had been spread and responsibilities have been spread. And we decided to consolidate that into one position. That will get us going on a whole series of other actions, but we were able to get the ball rolling right in January.
Fantastic. Good. Heather? Yes.
One challenge, in Mountain View, we did have an appearance of ice in Mountain View this past weekend. We're trying to figure out how to balance protecting our residents without antagonizing the federal government too much, and where we want to find that balance, we're still trying to figure out the long conversations with our police department. I felt very proud that the residents there actually called the police department on ice. So I was just like, at least you trust our police department enough to they couldn't do anything, but like, that was kind of nice to know. But in Joyce, speaking of Lunar New Year, we're having our Lunar New Year, this Saturday. You're all welcome at our community center. It's at 10.
Yes.
Challenges down in Gilroy, you know, large agricultural community and large undocumented community. And one of the challenges that I'm seeing and some of my contemporaries are seeing is there's a difference in what many of the undocumented people are seeing versus of what the advocacy groups are saying. Big time. And so that's a challenge, right? So you know, I work with folks that are undocumented, and I have a lot of friends that work with folks that are undocumented. So for maybe a little bit of good news is so far down even Gilroy, where we have some of the largest population, is that some of the stuff that you see on the news is not really reality, not for us yet. There's the challenge. The joy, this day and age, you know, we unfortunately we hear over and over about you know, kids these days, they're no good, they're not doing this, not doing that. At our city council meeting on Monday, we recognize 6 local kids on their own, connected with a group called Cheer. They're organization down in Gilroy led by a gentleman, and all he does is river and habitat protection in the name of steelhead, because steelhead still do come up from the bay all the way up to Gilroy. And 6 kids were recognized for helping clean up 5,000 pounds of garbage out of the creeks on their own support.
That's great.
So that's the joy of the week.
Very cool. Anyone else? I'll just say one joy that affects lots of our cities. Not really anyone specific, but thanks to the county for approving their housing element. With,
Say finally, Larry.
yes, Tuesday, they finally approved their housing element, which means no more new builders remedies for those cities that are adjacent to county land.
Just 40.
Anyway, but I think that was an important step from a county standpoint after, you know, all our cities have been hit to a certain degree. And we had discussions last year about builders remedies and all that, and to see whether or not that's part of the discussion this year. Anything else?
It's my first time. I feel like I should say something.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'll steal from Lisa today at the mayor's panel for the Silicon Valley Business Journal. She shared, you know, Santa Clara's got a lot of really cool things happening. Right now, 47% of the market cap for semiconductors exists in Santa Clara. So we have all this really cool opportunity. A challenge coming up, we have to finally make this decision on World Cup and FIFA. And I know everybody else gets to be really excited about that. We're just getting really nervous. We haven't seen the contracts that's coming up. So that is a wonderful opportunity and challenge at the same time. And so I look forward to collaborating with this group if I get to come back to say, you know, what do we do to market this? We've got an economic development ad hoc committee that was built specifically for this. So we can look at business opportunities in Santa Clara that are focused around that. And on that, it looks like our Tasman East project related is maybe going to hit the ground after about 10 years. You know, it's been sitting still, as many things have since pre-COVID times, but we're excited about opportunities as our little city becomes, you know, bigger in its britches. So.
And we're looking at having the host committee discuss at one of our future board meetings. So that'll be coming up because it does affect all of our cities in some way.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeing none, no one, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:47. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to put your dots next to your 5 favorite items. And we will talk about these at our next meeting. Thank you all. Have a good evening. What?
How many?
You get 5 dots. So it's 3 to, so we said 3 to 5. You can put them all on one if that's your favorite. But deal with them